People are going kooky bananas over this segment here. All right, so apparently Joe Rogan made a comment about. Well, this is the title of the video. It says Joe Rogan, wokeness means straight white men are not allowed to talk. So Joe Rogan is a bit concerned that straight white men won't be allowed to talk. And people are going like fucking ballistic over it. It's crazy. It's actually very interesting. Ever since Joe Rogan said something about it's two things that put Joe Rogan into like the cancel culture limelight. Because he's insanely popular. It's interesting that he avoided it. But it was two things. One, he misspoke about the vaccine. He said that you don't really need to get the vaccine if you're a young person. And when she walked it back, he was like, you know what? I realized that you should still get it so that you don't transfer it to other people who are high risk. And then the other thing is that he I don't know, he said Trisha Paytas was fat. And you know that like right now, the king of controversy is Trisha Paytas because, you know, she's a trans man. But Ethan and Trisha, they really are like kind of leading the leading the way when it comes to like drama, whether they're in the right or the wrong. They're very heavy influencers when it comes to drama, and they're not like wrong all the time. There are some very good things that they do, like when speaking out against David Dobrik and James Charles. But you know. Anyway, let's get into this. Now Joe Rogan's part of the drama community. He must be shaking a little bit. I don't know. Anyway, let's watch the clip.
You can never be woke enough. That's the problem. It keeps going. It keeps going further and further and further down the line. And if you get to the point where you capitulate, where you agree to all these demands, it will eventually get to straight white men are not allowed to talk.
Right.
Because it's your privilege to express yourself when other people of color have been silenced throughout history. It will be you're not allowed to go outside. Because so many people were imprisoned for so many years. I mean, I'm not joking.
No, I know.
It really will get there. It's that crazy. You know, we just got to be nice to each other, man. And there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of this weirdness in our culture, and then that becomes their thing. Their thing is calling people out for their privilege, calling people out for their position. You know, it's fucking crazy times.
Yeah. It's very interesting because, you know, from my perspective, I think it's one of the worst things that I feel like is happening in today's society, in America at least, is it's very cringy that we are trending in a direction where straight white men are going to be saying, hey, can you stop fucking with us? It's true, and I hate it because like I'm not oppressed as a mostly straight white guy. I'm not oppressed. I think that everybody has oppression, and it's up to your outcome in your life whether you are oppressed, right? So I have ADHD, OCD, I'm dyslexic, single parent household. I have Tourette's. You know, there's plenty of things that make me. There are plenty of things I have that make, or there are plenty of forms of oppression that I have hoisted onto me. But based on my outcome in life, I would not consider myself oppressed, right? Say that if you're middle class or up, or you're doing better than your parents were, you're probably not oppressed, right? Or at least the oppression that you have hasn't impacted you because you're doing well in life. But unfortunately, there does seem to be a weird online social narrative, and I'm fat. You're right. Thank you. Anyway, unfortunately, the online, you know, people online, the cancel cultureites, as it were, really want to like oppress straight white men. It's weird. It's one of those things where we've gone from the goalpost being at equality to moving it further to trying to oppress, you know, straight white people. And what's so sad is that the people trying to do it are people who don't have as much of a business identifying with the oppression of the particular community that they're identifying with. And so let me explain what that means. So you have a lot of young LGBTQ people that are not oppressed for being LGBTQ talking shit about straight people in a way where they want to overthrow straight people. Whereas people in the past, gay people in the past, that was never their intention. They always wanted equality. People who were truly oppressed. People who didn't have access to being able to work because they were gay, so they couldn't generate social security. So they're having difficulty living now that they're old. Those aren't modern day LGBTQ people, right? Modern day LGBTQ young people especially They don't have they you know, they're the ones complaining about that. You have people of color, and there are absolutely issues in marginalized communities, 100%. But you have people of color who are, especially the progressives that are doing well in life, that are well spoken, they're middle class, and because they're young means they haven't earned a single bit of it. Those people overly identifying with the oppression of their particular group and then advocating for hate against white people, right? I know like a pretty reasonable amount of like black guys from, I don't know, you call them like the projects. None of them hate white people. But then you see all of these like well-off, you know, progressives, regardless of whether they're black or not, they hate white people all of a sudden, even though they are not oppressed nearly as much by systemic racism, if at all. And this is kind of where we're trending, where privileged individuals that belong to particular communities, marginalized communities that aren't actually marginalized for that identification, are over-identifying with that oppression from that community, and then they're perpetuating hate because of it. And that's a big issue. And it's like obnoxious because it gets very difficult as an ignorant white person. And when I say ignorant, I mean like not understanding. It's difficult for an ignorant white person to understand and accept systemic racism when you have people of a particular identity group that aren't oppressed shouting at you, saying that you're the problem. It's just, it's you know, it's difficult to educate people on these particular things. And then when you just hate white people or you hate straight people, like they're not going to give a fuck about systemic oppression. Nobody's going to give a fuck about systemic oppression if you're going to like tell them that they're like less than and they're shitty. And it's unfortunate because to all you guys out there, like you're not a victim. Straight white men, you're not a victim. Okay? So don't go around being like, I'm the real victim. Don't be a coward. You know, overcome the issue. You know, be better. Take a deep breath and just try to fight for equality. But we're trending in a direction because at the end of the day, the only thing that makes straight white men not oppressed is the power that they have. But if this anti-straight white male rhetoric keeps up, once we are purely equal, what's going to happen then? Yeah, you understand my point? All of a sudden, there's no more power and everybody's equal because we want to be equal. Right? Like I want equality. And so I'm pushing for equality. But as that hatred hits me, once we're equal, and then you're like, oh, well, I hate white people. Like, why? For what? I'm actively fighting for equality. So what the fuck are we doing here? Anyway, that's the point I wanted to make on that.